Shudder is a streaming service dedicated to horror, suspense, and thriller content. They've been around since 2015 and have grown to have over 11 million subscribers. They offer a variety of options from horror content to documentaries, TV shows, etc. I remember back in the pandemic, I signed up for Shudder because I've heard about this horror film called Host, which was filmed during the pandemic. And this was actually a pretty good film, and it was short. It was like 50 minutes, and it was all filmed on Zoom, and it was really good. So if you haven't seen it and you have Shudder, I suggest you watch Host. But this video is not about Host. Besides Host, I didn't see, like, I watched some other movies on there, but they weren't good enough for me to like keep my subscription. They weren't really that good, is what I'm trying to say. So I canceled my subscription, but in the last few years, they've been getting a lot of really good movies, and they've been investing into getting more high quality films like When Evil Lurks, Late Night with the Devil, Speak No Evil, etc. All these films have received great reviews from filmgoers and critics. So last week I decided to give Shudder another shot, and I signed up for the service and I watched 4 horror movies to see if they upped their game. I watched 4 different horror movies in one night because I had nothing to do. FYI, I will be spoiling all 4 of them. So if you haven't seen any of the movies I'm about to mention, I suggest that you go watch them and then come back here. One big plus for Shudder is that all their movies are 90 minutes or less. All the movies that I've seen on there have been 90 minutes or less. And that I love. That is my favorite thing. There's nothing more that I hate than a 2-hour movie that doesn't need to be 2 hours. But all the movies that I'm going to mention are 90 minutes or less. The first movie I watched is Baghead. From the name and the poster of the film, I thought this was going to be a really bad low-budget horror film, but I was pleasantly surprised. The plot of Baghead reads as follows. A young woman inherits a rundown pub and discovers a dark secret within the basement. Baghead, a shape-shifting creature that will let you speak to lost loved ones, but not without consequences. It's similar to Talk to Me, but instead of using a hand to talk to the dead, you talk to this old witch that has her head covered and lives in a basement in a bar. I really enjoyed this movie. Aside from all the characters who kept making horrible decisions, I thought this movie was really well done. The cinematography was really good and it was very suspenseful. The characters, however, were terrible. First, there's the lead, Iris. She has a girlfriend or a friend. The relationship is not clear. You know, they were fighting like they were lovers, but they slept in separate rooms, which happens, I suppose. But I don't know, their relationship was just, it wasn't clear. I think out of all the movie, I know I said I love me a 90-minute movie, but out of all the movies that I'm going to mention, this one would have benefited from like 10-15 minutes. An extra 10-15 minutes to kind of flush out the story a little more. So pretty much the basic story is that there's this ancient witch that lives in a basement in well, she's trapped in a basement, and whoever owns the building and whose name is on the deed of the building is in charge, is like the master of this witch. So she can't leave unless something happens to the owner, or I don't know. But I mean, she does leave at the end, and I'm gonna explain how that happens. But pretty much whose name is on the deed of the building owns Baghead, is the master of Baghead. And the dad, Iris's dad, used to own the building, but he dies because he's like, I'm gonna burn this place. He couldn't take it anymore with this lady. It was like a curse to him. So he dies, and then Iris inherits the bar and her name goes on the deed. So now she's the master of Baghead. Then there's this other character named Neil who is a customer, and he just keeps trying to come back to talk to Baghead. At the beginning of the movie, we see him trying to convince the dad. He's like begging him, please let me talk to her, please let me talk to her. And the dad is like, no. So once the dad leaves, and I mean he dies, And the daughter, Iris, comes and is the owner. He comes back to the bar and he like begs her to let her, like he's gonna pay her $4,000 to let him talk to Baghead. And this girl just agrees because she needs the money, but she doesn't know like what this thing is. She thinks he's crazy at first. So Neil, I didn't like his character. I thought he was not really, he wasn't written well. Like Neil knows how this whole thing works because he's been here before. Okay, he was begging the last owner to let him talk to the lady. So when Iris comes, she's like, fine, I'll let you talk to her. And then he's explaining to Iris how the thing works. Like she's gonna come out of this hole in the basement. And Iris at first thinks he's lying, but then Baghead comes out and she's like, holy moly, it's true. And he's like, you have to tie her up, you have to tie her up. So she ties her up. And Neil gives Baghead, because she needs something of the dead person in order to like call them in. So he gives her a watch, no, the ring, the wedding ring. And his mother shows up instead of his wife. And I'm like, Neil, you've done this before. You know that ring, well, the ring belonged to the mom first. And then he remembers, oh, the ring belonged to my mom. That's why it didn't work. Let me come back with something else. I'm like, you already knew this. You need something that belonged to her. So he gives her the ring and the mom comes out. He really wants to talk to his wife because she was apparently cheating on him and he wanted to know why or who it was. But he was making it seem like he just missed her so much. But then at the end, we find out that he really wants to own Baghead and own the witch and be in charge. And he found the deed and he wrote his name on the deed, and Baghead is like, that's not how it works. Because he wants to be able to talk to his wife whenever he wants. And I was like, why? Weren't you just upset that she was cheating on you and all you wanted to do was find out why she was cheating on you? Why do you want to talk to her for eternity? If she was cheating on you and you just wanted to know why. So why do you want to just own Baghead and just like have her talk to your wife whenever you want? Anyways, at the end they all die, which I enjoyed. I like the ending of this because Neil's dumb thinks by killing Iris and he just write his name on the deed, he's gonna own the place and own Baghead, but that's not how it works. So once he kills Iris, he gives Baghead Iris's phone so he could call her in, so she could sign over the deed to him. So when Baghead calls her in, she's now Iris, and she's like, my master is dead, and now I'm my master because Iris is her now. So she doesn't need him anymore and she doesn't need anyone. So she kills Neil and she walks off the bar. So now Baghead is roaming around. Where is this? Ireland, I think it is. I'm not sure if this was Ireland, somewhere in London, somewhere in England, somewhere on that side of the world. Baghead is just walking around looking like a normal person, doing whatever she wants. So I enjoy this movie. I enjoy the ending because, you know, it wasn't really predictable at the end. I really enjoy when the bad people win at the end, because it's, you know, like there's no happy endings in life. So this was an enjoyable, especially because all these characters were so stupid. You guys were all so dumb. I was so upset just watching Neil and Iris making stupid decisions. And her girlfriend just goes into the basement. That's how she dies. Her girlfriend just goes into the basement looking for Baghead. And Baghead is like, one of the rules, there's like, Baghead lives in this hole in the wall. And one of the rules is not to go in there because that's when she's powerful and she can kill you. And what does the little girlfriend do? She goes into the hole looking for Iris. And she dies. Anyways, all of them making horrible decisions. But at the end, they all die, and Baghead transforms into Iris, and she walks into the sunshine and lives. I gave this movie 2 stars. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed myself. And it was, you know, it was suspenseful. It was a good horror movie. The next horror movie I watched was called Humane, which I found really good and entertaining. It takes place in one house, one location. The acting was really good. Everyone's really good in this film. This one is more of a thriller drama, and I thought the idea and execution was really good, and it received a lot of good reviews when it first came out. So the basic plot of this film is, in the wake of an environmental collapse that is forcing humanity to shed 20% of its population, a family dinner erupts into chaos when a father's plan to enlist in the government's new euthanasia program goes horribly wrong. So pretty much this is based on a distant future when the world is overpopulated and the government is offering families of people money for them to volunteer to be euthanized and die to help shed the population. So if you volunteer to die, your family gets money. So in the movie, this rich guy enlists to be euthanized, him and his wife enlist. But then in the last minute, the wife backs out and she's like, I don't want to do this. And she runs off. And prior to this happening, the dad invited all 4 of his children to come to have a dinner, like one last dinner, to let them know we're gonna be euthanized tonight. And, you know, they wanted to say their goodbyes. And the kids are all like, what are you talking about? Why are you doing this? They're like really upset. And on that night, when the wife decides, like, I don't want to do this, I'm scared, she runs off. She like leaves the house. And so the government sends this company, these people to come and euthanize whoever volunteers. And they come that night, and the guy in charge is like, you know, he euthanizes the dad, but then the wife is not there. So he's like, you know, we need 2 bodies. We can't, because it's all a money thing for them, you know, like we can't just leave with 1 body because 2 people sign up. So we need 2. So you guys need to pick who is going to die because we need to euthanize somebody tonight, somebody else. So he pretty much is like, you guys, someone needs to volunteer. You figure it out. I'll be back in an hour. And the kids, so there are 4 children. One of them is adopted. One of them is a minority adopted, and who also happens to be a recovering drug addict. So of course, all biological children decide that he should be the one to die, and he's like, no. So the whole movie, majority of the movie, is them trying to kill him, so he could, because they asked, can we just give you a body? Like one of the kids asked the guy in charge, like, can we just give you a body? Like, if there's a dead body in here, can you just take it? And he's like, sure, just figure it out. Let me know when you're done. So they come up with this plan to kill the adopted kid. So the whole movie is just trying to kill this guy. And the funny thing is that the adopted kid is so much stronger than all of them, even though he's like a recovering addict. He just beats everybody up. But at the end, they all come up with a plan, and they all live, and they threaten the guy in charge. They end up killing. So during the middle of the movie, when the kids were trying to get the adopted kid, when they were trying to kill him, the adopted kid is hiding, and he has a girlfriend who's also a recovering addict, and he texts her. So the girlfriend comes to the house looking for him, and the government people shoot her and kill her. So now he's like really pissed off, the adopted kid. So at the end, he grabs one of the government agent that killed his girlfriend. He like kills her. He uses the needle that they use to euthanize the people. He euthanizes her. He like grabs her and like stabs her in the neck. So at the end, they threaten the security guard, like, you're gonna take these people or we're gonna kill you too. You know, the 4 kids come together. They like decide, no, we're family. We're not gonna kill him. They're like, you're gonna take the security guard and the girlfriend and say that those are the bodies, or we're gonna kill you. And at the end, all 4 of them live. So if you backed out of the procedure, you're enlisted into this list of cowards. But if you go on with the procedure, you're like praised by the public, and they say it in the news, how brave you were. So at the end, we see him saying like, oh, like the girlfriend was so brave, and like our government of guard, the guard that got killed, she was so brave for you know, volunteering to help the nation be back to where it was. So I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the premise. It was short and sweet. It was like 90 minutes. So I thought this was really well done, and I recommend it if anybody wants to watch it. I gave this movie 2 stars as well, and it's called Humane. The next film I watched on Shudder is called Stopmotion, and immediately I'm gonna tell you this movie was not for me. And although it was an interesting film, it was really well done. It was more of an art house psychological thriller. It was somewhat graphic at times and gross in other times. So the basic plot of this film is a stop-motion animator struggles to control her demons after the loss of her overbearing mother. And that's pretty much it. The lead of the film, Ella, is an animator, and at the beginning of the film we see her helping her mother, who's also an animator, make a stop-motion film with her mother. And her mother is just awful to her. She's just like rude, and she calls her Muppet, and she's always yelling at her. Then her mother dies, and Ella runs into this little girl who apparently lives in the building. At the beginning we think she's like this random little girl that shows up who's just annoying. So the little girl starts helping Ella make her own stop motion film, because she's like, Ella tells her that she's gonna finish the film for her mother, and she tells her what the film is about, and the little girl's like, oh, that sounds boring, that sounds like an awful film, you should make this film about this. So Ella decides that she's gonna actually make her own film based on the story that the little girl is telling her. And as the movie goes on, like at the beginning, you think this little girl is like a neighbor whose parents are not around. She's just annoying and lonely. But as the movie progresses, you kind of realize that like maybe this little girl is not real. And then at the end, we find out that the little girl wasn't real. It was all in Ella's imagination, and I think it represented younger Ella, who was repressed by her mother. Like her mother was an animator. Because her mother had arthritis, Ella had to be her hands and make all these puppets and make all these movies for her mother. So her own desires and her own imagination was kind of put aside, and just to help her mother make her own work. And throughout the film, the little girl is the one telling the story of this film, because when Ella tells her, you know, that the film that her mom was doing was boring, not Ella, when the little girl tells Ella that the film that the mom was doing was like boring, Ella's like, oh, what will you do then? And the little girl is like, well, this is what would happen, yada, yada, yada. And then out of nowhere, Ella blacks out and wakes up, and the film that the little girl was, the story, she made this scene already, like on stop motion. She wakes up and it's already made. So Ella continues to work on that film. And the little girl's the one that keeps telling her what happens in the story. And then the little girl's like suggesting for Ella to use real meat to make the puppets look more real. So they find this dead dog, this dead animal, and they use their skin, and like there's meat that they bought in the market, I think it was. And they use that meat to make the Muppets look more real. And then Ella has a boyfriend, and he has a sister who works in like animation. And she comes to check on Ella, and then she steals her idea because she's like, oh, I can get you a job. So she gets Ella a job, and that's when Ella finds out that she stole her idea, and she gets all upset. And at the end, when Ella is like going crazy, she kills the boyfriend and the sister. Ella is going crazy, like the Muppets that she created for the stop motion film, she starts seeing them in like real life, and they start chasing her. And then at the end, Ella also dies because the little girl, she tells her all great artists always insert a piece of themselves into their work. So Ella takes this too literal, and she like rips a piece of her skin. She like cuts her leg and rips a piece of her own skin and muscles to add to the stop motion for the film that she's doing. And then she bleeds out, she bleeds to death. and I see why people will like this film. It was really well done. The story was interesting. And what I got from it is that, you know, it's a story about a tormented artist who just wanted to express herself and use her creativity, but that was repressed by her mother. And then at the end, she kind of goes mad. Or at least that's what I got from it. You know, I didn't hate the film. I just didn't think it was for me. I also gave this film 2 stars. And the next film that I'll be talking about is Arcadian, which stars Nicolas Cage. And I'm telling you right now, I did not like this movie. And not because it was a bad film, because the premise is actually pretty good if you're into end of the world type of films, which I am. But I don't know if they used all of their budget to pay Nicolas Cage and they couldn't afford to buy tripods for the cameras. Because whoever shot this film, he used it was all handheld. And the camera was shaking the whole time. I could not focus on this movie because the camera just kept on shaking. And it was so distracting from the movie itself and the story, which I thought it was good. The story itself was good. I felt like I was in a roller coaster watching this movie because everything was shaking. And the story had potential to be good. This movie had a lot of potential to be good. So the basic plot of this film is a father and his twin teenage sons fight to survival in a remote farmhouse at the end of the world. And that's pretty much it. It's similar to I Am Legend, except that there are people around. There are these creatures that come out at night, and you have to secure your house because if they get in, you're dead. So you cannot leave your house at night because if you go out into the night, you're dead. And the creatures are really smart because during the movie, you know, Nicolas Cage and his sons secure the house and the creatures are always trying to get in but can't. And at the end, Nicolas Cage and the sons realize that the creatures have dug a hole to come under the house. So they're like, oh my God, they're gonna come in from the floor. But at the end, like when the creatures finally get into the house, Nicolas Cage dies trying to save his children and both of the boys and one girl, like a neighbor that one of the boys has a crush on, and the creatures kill her parents. They all escape and run off into the sunset and live. I swear, I thought this movie was like some cheap indie film that someone got $1 million and they gave all that money to Nicolas Cage and used whatever was left to film this movie. And I googled the budget for this, and somewhere it said $65 million, but I was like, that can't be right. This can't be the same movie. But now I can't find the budget. But if I find it, I'm gonna insert it in. But Google, I saw an article that it cost $65 million, and I'm like, that cannot be true. Because the movie didn't even make $1 million at the box office. So I don't know what the budget is, but they used all that money just to pay Nicolas Cage. And to make these creatures look really scary because they were so creepy. Anyways, I really wanted to like this movie, but the camera got me really nauseous and I did not enjoy it. So I gave it 1 star. Anyways, those are the movies I watched on Shudder. All of them received 2 stars except for Arcadian, who received 1 star. But if they had a better cameraman, I would have given it 2 or 3. Comment down below if you've seen any of these films and what you thought of them, or if you've seen any other films on Shudder that you think are good and you think I should watch. Tell me the name in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and help me grow. And I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world. Until next time, bye.